Hey, Matt here. Let me tell you about how you can find your own proxy sources for use with Scrapebox. Now, Scrapebox comes with some sources for proxies, but obviously they're very heavily used, and as people use them all around the world on different time zones, at any given time, it can be difficult to find good proxies that are not blocked by Google, if you want to use that, or proxies that may not be blocked by another engine or that sort of thing if you want to do some scraping. And so, in order to find more proxy sources, basically you can just add your own, which is really a great source because if you get your own proxy sources, they're not being used by everybody else, and the proxies can last longer and you can find more. And it's really just a great thing to get your own proxy sources. So, let's have a look at how you can find free public proxy sources and add them to Scrapebox. In Scrapebox, the way that you do it is you go down here to Manage, and you go harvest proxies, and then we can add a source, and we can type in an actual URL, we can add from a text file, we can add from the clipboard, and we can type in a socks URL. So it's important to keep socks proxies labeled as socks and HTTP proxies labeled as HTTP proxies because Scrapebox needs to know the difference so that it can use them correctly, otherwise they won't work. So let's go find us some good proxy sources that we can add in here. Now, one great way to do it, if you don't want to actually add a source, you can actually just go to forums. And so I typed into Google here proxy forum. And let's say we go to DCS proxy list forum and go down here to anonymous HTTP proxies, and we'll just click this first list, and I can just grab a bunch of these and copy, go back to Scrapebox, paste them in right here, and then I can just test those proxies and go to town. Now, you can get a lot of good proxies this way. A lot of forums have, members here that will post up daily new proxies, which is great. But when I first started using Scrapebox, this is how I got my proxies, and I'd spend 20 to 30 minutes a day going to different forums and copying these out, and then pasting them in and testing them and filtering and all that sort of stuff, which is okay. But if you need a lot of proxies, because I'm a pretty heavy user, it can really get tedious to do that. So Scrapebox is great because it includes the ability to just grab your own sources. Now, I can't grab sources from DCSproxy.com because it requires you to be logged in order to view these, and so Scrapebox isn't going to be able to log in. So I'm going to have to find just public, regular pages that don't require authentication in order to get in. So let's go back to Google here. And so as I go down the list, I just went through and clicked on each one of these to find some that aren't that don't require a login. And so ProxyFire, for instance, has a list. And so if we just jump over to ProxyFire here, and I just clicked on the banner to go to the home page. Over here on the side, you'll see this. Now you don't want transparent level 3 proxies, you only want level 2 and level 1. But Scrapebox is going to test these anyways, so that's not really of a great concern, but there's no sense in wasting your time getting level 3 if they've already filtered out that these are level 3. You don't want those. There's no sense making Scrapebox run through and test all those as well. If they're labeled, grab the level 1 and level 2 proxies, the elite and the anonymous. So I'm just going to go here for level 2 anonymous. ProxyFire actually provides a free public list, doesn't require any authentication. You can see the URL up here, and you can see that I'm not logged in or anything here. And so we can grab that URL, go over to Scrapebox, go manage, harvest proxies here, add a source by typing in the URL, paste, OK, hit start, let it grab 127 proxies, and boom, it just grabbed those off of here. Now, this URL isn't going to change. This is a non-changing URL, which means as this list gets updated, it's always going to be updated at this URL, which is what you want for Scrapebox because every time it's going to go look for this URL. It's not going to crawl through pages, so if you just put in a forum homepage, it's not going to crawl through pages and pull out all the proxies. It's going to load up that single URL and look for proxies on that single URL. So there's one example. Now another thing you can do is actually go in and find, regardless of whether or not you have to be logged into a forum, you can go find members that do post, lists like this that you could copy and paste into Scrapebox and filter off of that. But if you have a look at their signature files, a lot of times they'll include links to other proxy sites or to their own proxy sites where you can get proxies from, and they include these as a convenience here. So what we can do here is we just grab one of these sites and just jump over. So this is VIP Socks. So I'm going to jump over to that site here, which is this one here. And you can see right here is a giant list. And as we go down, there's more lists. So Scrapebox can pull this page up and get all these proxies straight from it. So I can grab this URL. Remember, this is a socks list, so I want to put that in for Scrapebox. And I add source, a sock source, paste that in there, and hit start, and it's going to go through their 2,441 proxies. Now click OK. Always you want, and see it labeled them socks, you want to do cleanup and remove duplicate proxies, and you'll see it took it down to 907. And the reason is, as these go through here on different days, so this is the 18th, then the 17th, and then you might have the 16th as you go down. They're going to continue to test the same ones over and over again, and they'll post the same ones multiple times. So good idea to remove duplicates. But so there, we just picked up from someone's signature file a source that Scrapebox can pull in 907 proxies from. And of course that number will vary from day to day, but that's a good amount of proxies. By the time you test that, maybe you'll wind up with 100 or something, and 100 good proxies is pretty good to be able to do stuff with. And so that's one way that you can get sources. Another way is then you can just kind of follow the trail, the breadcrumb trail. So then we looked in a signature. Now we could go back to that signature and pull the rest of these, but we don't even know to go there. Let's look at all the links on these pages. A lot of times people that have these pages will have multiple of them, like a socks version, a non-socks version. In this case, I see Scrapebox proxies right here, which is huge. These are proxies that are custom tailored to work with Scrapebox and focused around that, which is excellent. So let's click that, jump over Scrapebox proxies. These are probably HTTP proxies. Usually if they're socks, it'll say it. So then I see all these lists here with all these enormous amounts of proxies. So then I can just grab this URL, throw it right into Scrapebox, and add it as a source. Let's check that out. 3,700 proxies right there. Scrapebox proxies. It doesn't get any easier than that. And so there's 3,700 proxies that come right through here, and it'll just grab all these. Now it's important to notice how this works. So I got these sources, and I had these set up ahead of time so I knew where to go. But as you go through here, notice how this is a non-changing URL. This is the homepage URL. If I were to click on this link, see how it has this big long thing? This page is not going to change. This page is going to stay this way. This is a blog, so as blogs do, they update, and so the newest content's always on the front page. Those are the kind of things you want. You have to have one URL that has always updated content. If I have this long URL and I put this in here, this will work today, but tomorrow it'll be the same list, because this is going to set here forever. And in a month, when I go to scrape this is going to scrape all those proxies every time, and they're not going to work. Hopefully that makes sense. So you have to find a static URL that has dynamic content and has the proxies updated for it. So those are a couple of great ways to find proxies and to trace breadcrumb trails and add different sources. Another great way is, odds are, say this proxy right here at the top, 101.50.17.25 port 8080. This proxy is posted here. There are probably other sites out there that have this proxy posted, because these sites, what they do is they have lists of sources, or they scan for proxies themselves, and they go out and then they test it and then they post it here. And they're hoping to make money on the ads and stuff, and so that's why they're doing this. But if they've posted it, someone else probably has also scanned proxies from that same source, and they filtered it and posted it somewhere else. So I'm just going to grab a proxy and go over to Google and paste it in and hit search and see what happens, because Google sees all that. We're going back to almost like footprints. So let's have a look then. So Google found that proxy posted on this page. So let's have a look at coolproxy.net here. It talks about that proxy. Oh, but look here, proxy list. And so then all of a sudden I have another proxy list. And then I have all these pages, so I can do this page, and it's always going to change. And when I hit page 1, I can do page 1 in there as well, and just go through each page and copy all the URLs in there and add those as sources. Now it may be more convenient with a long list like this to go ahead and just copy and paste them into a notepad file and then import the whole notepad file into Scrapebox, and we'll talk about how to do that here in just a second. But you can see a huge list there. And so then let's go back, let's look at the next one down the row here. And so it again talks about that particular proxy from Indonesia and talks about it, but right here again, proxy list. And so then here I have another list. And then I can grab these, like grab one of these URLs and go back to Google and search for it and find more places that Google has found. And here's another proxy list. And so it just goes on and on and on, and you can just trace breadcrumbs through. Now, it's probably important to note that some of these places out here are regularly updated. Like this one here, it has a date. This was updated May 18th of 2011, which is when this video is made. So this is up to date. Now other places may not be up to date. So you might find a source that looks really good, like this cool proxies place. It looks good and it says it was tested just recently within the past few minutes, but I ran a test on these proxies and not a one of them's working, even though it says 9 minutes ago it tested this and it was working, and a minute or 15 minutes ago and 8 minutes ago, that sort of thing. So it's important as you add a source, I always like to add my sources and then test each one. So here's 3,700 proxies, for instance. We can remove the duplicates and then we can just hit test and let it buzz through there, and you'll see IP test here because I was ignoring Google. So we know that's a good source, and we can even test for Google here first and let it run through. And as you can start to see, we're into it. It's bringing in good proxies here. That's a good source. And you can let it test all the way through. But if you test 1,700 proxies and none of them are good, or like 3 of them are good, then that's probably a good indication that source is either super heavily used and it's probably not going to be a good place to worry about and waste your time, or it's just a list out there, because there are lists out there that are 5 years old and they've just been sitting there for the past 5 years hoping for Google searchers to come and click on ads or sell you something, but they don't care about updating their list. So that's how to add a smart source. Go ahead and test each source individually, because if you go in here, which is what I did when I first started, I added like 100 sources and hit start, and there was like 10,000 proxies. And then out of 10,000 proxies, I got a few hundred working, but 8,000 of those proxies were from bad sources, so you don't need to waste your time on those. So test each source individually as you add it, and then you'll also come across sources that Scrapebox cannot bring from. So if we jump in here and have a look at this list here, this is just a regular web page that I found, and it looks like it has a list, but because of the way the page is formatting and the coding that's used, if I go here, grab this list, add it to Scrapebox, typing in the URL here, and hit start, I got 12. There are a lot more than 12 proxies on this list. And so this inner content here is created dynamically by this page, and it's in a format that Scrapebox can't use. It's just not going to work, so just don't worry about it. You can see it probably pulled those IP addresses from somewhere else, but maybe even from Google Ads right here. Well, this isn't Google Ads, it's in between it, but it could have pulled these 12 sources, and then the rest of this is dynamic. But you can test them, and if it's a good source, go with it, but you'll find pages like that. Just keep moving on and just grab another source. So let's have a look at the actual folder here. If you go into your Scrapebox folder, looks something like this. Under configuration, you'll find this user proxy sources file. That is my list. So let me get out of this here, click OK, close this down. Alright, go in here, and our proxy sources we just added, here they are. Now you'll see this one says socks, and then it has a space and the website, and then you'll see these here. So the ones and zeros on the end are just whether or not they're checked off. So see how proxies, myproxy.com has a 1 and the rest are zeros. If I go into Scrapebox and hit manage, harvest, it's just checked off. So if I check all these off, for instance, and hit OK and close out of this, and then reopen this file that it just saved, they'll all have ones next to them. So the ones don't worry about too much. If you're adding from a source, you don't even have to have that. So if you have a big list and you're creating it, and you just want to add a source like this. You could save this file as a text file, go in here to manage, harvest, add source from a file, and it will bring in all the sources. Just for socks, you're going to label them socks and put a space, and then put the actual website in there. And then for HTTP proxies, you just throw them in there, and that is where your file is saved in here. And every time you close out of the proxy manager, it updates that file for you. So that's how you can get a great list. And so this our list here that we just threw in there. Let's just hit start, see what happens, hit OK, clean up, remove duplicate proxies. Boom. For a few minutes, I've got 2,700 proxies to test, and those sources are going to refresh daily. And I can go in and get those lists every day, and so they're more unique to me. Obviously other people use them, but that's how you can really get some great lists that the proxies on aren't getting hammered as heavily. And now that I've made this video, all those sources are probably going to get hammered heavily, so you might want to go ahead and try to find other sources. But that's a great way to do it. Get yourself some proxies and go to town.